Alrighty. Boy, two videos back to back almost. Hi, this is video 875, and I want to talk about something that I realized the other day. Um, I was scanning through Facebook, as I am off to do, and I saw someone having a discussion, and um, the discussion said something about, well, the problem with today is, we need God in schools. We need prayer in school. That's, God is we need God in school. We need prayer in school. And it always that saying just always bothered me. A little bit of history for myself. I was raised Catholic. Okay. So Um, it wasn't prayer that was bothering me, but it was just, I think, the idea of perhaps forcing my views on someone else, I think. And I had seen a very clever Facebook post the other day that talked about the difference between a religious spirituality and a hate group was in pushing your belief on someone else. So anyway, back to this idea, because you'll see it, and it usually is when I see it, it's like a conservative Republican talking point. Well, some old fuck is in front of a group of people and like, well, I tell you what the problem is. We need God back in our schools. We need prayer to Jesus. Um, they don't go that far. They just say God. But the problem is what I noticed. What I noticed afterwards was what they're really saying is they identify with a certain set of rules, okay? And what um, they want everyone else to abide by those certain set of rules. And so by saying we need God back in our schools, they're projecting to a large group of people who may or may not believe in what they say. But the thing about religion, especially Christianity, is um, people say, well, I believe in the Bible, I take the Bible as canon, blah, 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 blah. But what I've noticed is they treat it like a salad bar and they just take what they want and leave everything else, you know. Totally willing to overlook sodomy, having sex with your children, God in the Old Testament just killing whomever God wanted. Life is sacred, but then shit, you get on God's bad side. Yahweh sends his hitmen out, smite them, God, if God has a bad day and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to kill everyone on the planet except for you, Noah. Get in the boat, take one of every creature except for unicorns. I don't like unicorns. Um, you know, God is in the Old Testament at least, God is a very moody deity. Fuck these people. I'm going to elevate you here. You put some lamb skin on your face and go have sex with your father. The Bible anyway. Pick and choose. That's the bottom line of it. Is pick and choose what you believe in. And then when we get to Christianity, Jesus was very specific on love one another, treat everybody with respect, look out for each other, love your neighbor, blah, blah, blah. If someone offends you, turn the other cheek. Okay, we can talk about, allegories all day long. But, Jesus never said to hate gay people. Jesus never said that abortions were bad. In fact, quite the reverse, as far as the Bible goes. There's parts of the Bible that talk about specifically what you do to have an abortion, to abort a fetus. So, but getting back to Jesus, Okay. Jesus never said hate gay people. Jesus never said hate transgender people. So human beings have taken their own prejudices, you know. Joe Schmo says, I don't like transgender women. I don't like homosexuality. I don't like pansexuals. Okay. So they're abhorrent. And then they find something, some person stepped on a rock and twisted their ankle, and somehow that means gay people are bad. Or they find some weird, but Jesus never said it. And so if you're Christian, call me simple, but I'd follow what Jesus says, not what Peter says or we already know that the Bible is made by people. It's not made by God, although there are some people who believe that. But anyway, so back to this idea of God in schools is the person appeals to a broad group of people who believe in God, but without specifying or codifying what those rules are, but just saying, we need the Ten Commandments in school. We need, God. But what they're really saying is, fuck you all. You should believe like I believe and do what I tell you to do. Okay? Which is probably not necessarily fascism, but at least authoritarianism. And so if we live in a democracy or in a republic, I suppose, we live kind of in a republic democracy hybrid, and that we elect people to cast votes on our behalf, but they don't always do that, do they? Um, a politician doesn't take a poll of everyone in their district and then vote accordingly. They get elected on a certain set of beliefs, and then they can just say "fuck you" and vote whatever they want. Till their next election, and then they're back to pandering. But what was I going to say? We're talking about religion and school. So again, back to this idea of authoritarianism that is so against democracy and a republic, right? I mean, we're supposedly against tyrants and kings and da 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 da. The divine right of kings. So it is so un-American to have that point of view. But you hear that marriage, well, we're a Christian nation. We're a nation under God. And of course, if you're aware of things, we didn't put in God and God we trust on the money until the 50s and the 60s, okay? That was a thing against McCarthy or a thing against communism and I mean a whole bunch of other things. But our forefathers didn't say, hey Ben, we're going to have a treasury and let's put, in God we trust the money. That was something people did in the 50s and in the 60s. It was not there all the time. Um, so again, we have this idea. Again, if you're not aware of that, if you're ignorant of it, which there's nothing wrong with ignorance, okay? Perhaps once you realize that you were ignorant and then you deny it and you say the contrary, maybe there's something wrong with that. But again, back to this idea of God in schools, and God is going to fix it. Again, they want to establish an authoritarian state under a certain set of beliefs that rewards their own sense of rules and what's cool and what's not cool, and then punishes sin, okay, which is just a generic term for anything they don't like, you know. Um, so again, I think it when I realized what was going on, it kind of illuminated it to me, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, why do conservatives, by their very definition, they want to hold on to old traditions. They want to look back. They want to, they're a bit of a break, whoop, for the modern world, okay? Kind of a safety break. Whoa, slow it down. Don't rush to the cliff. Make sure that's what you really want. You know, um, that is something that can be a good thing. But then it can be a bad thing when it's against progress. And back to the idea of schools, again, when you hear someone say, we need God in schools, and 10 people say, yeah, you're right, um, my hope is maybe now, if you weren't before, you might be, wait a minute, that's fascism, that's authoritarianism, that's not America, that's not a democracy. And, we had something a month or two ago about the abortion stuff with the Supreme Court. And at the time, the argument was, well, we need to turn it over to the states and let the states decide. A national, guarantee of a woman's health care is a bad thing. And people were like, yeah, the anti-federalists were like, yeah, we need to send it back to the states, right? And then now that it's back in the states, you have those same people who now have switched out their signs who are saying, no, we need a national ban on abortion. It shouldn't be left up to the states, so that's a bit of hypocrisy in its own right. But back to the idea again of God in schools, much like prayer in schools, same thing. Um, I tend to view the Pledge of Allegiance in the same way, and I realize that's a little different, but when you swear your life to a flag, um, to me, that puts that flag over people, you know. And I realize that's probably a whole other video in and of itself, but that is fascism. You know what I mean? Dear leader is always right. You don't question the leader, you know. Um, so again, when I grew up, we had at my middle school, we had a song would come over the intercom. It was Here Comes the Sun. Whoops, George Harrison, Beatles. And that was kind of like the, hey, it's time to get together. And then we would have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. And then maybe a moment of silence. And then the announcements of the day, you know. Um, but if you just think about the past and how controlling and how manipulative, again, someone saying, I'm going to use the Imperial Infantryman's Guard book, but to sit there and say, everyone's going to believe this, you know, and that repetition every day. I mean, I don't necessarily know if that's the definition of brainwashing, um, but you know, back into Catholicism, um, it's so hard for me, to when I say a prayer, I cross myself. I can't. I've been conditioned to do that, and I'm a witch, I'm pagan. But I can't. It's like it gets in your, it gets in your brain. Um, I can do the homily by heart. Through him, with him, the unity of the Holy Spirit. All glory is yours, Almighty Father. I lost my bell. Ring a ling a ling a ling a ling a ling. I mean, it's in here. And so if you think about our history, generations have had that indoctrination every morning. School, Pledge of Allegiance, prayer, moment of silence. Not to do a Manchurian candidate on you, but it's got to be hard to break that. Um, so anyway, so when someone, whoa, good Lord, children, ooh, is it UPS for me? I'm going to end the video. It looks like UPS. Bye. Have a good day. It's okay. I won't leave. Um, but I am excited because it might be my kimono. Anyway, so that's it. Um, just be don't know. I'm aware of it now. And so again, when someone says, we need God in schools, we need to return to prayer, um, they're asking for that same brainwashing and authoritarian. I think we can say that, a theocracy, you know. And it's kind of the same way with science. I guess I'll add a PS here. When you are designing a scientific curriculum or an educational curriculum, you don't want to be tainted by a religious point of view. And so, I'm very skeptical, and I got this from Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I'm very skeptical of a scientist who's a Christian. I mean, or religious for that matter. Science is trying to understand the world as we know it. And if you're just going to say, oh, God did it, you know, doesn't make much sense. Anyway, till next time. Bye bye.